Hello and welcome to Short Stories. I'm your host, Martin. Today's short story is based on The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka was a writer and insurance agent who lived from 1883 to 1924. He grew up in a German-speaking Jewish family in Prague. His father, Hermann Kafka, was a traveling salesman and clothing retailer. His mother, Julie, was from a well-respected merchant family. This ensured that Franz grew up in a solidly middle-class household. The Metamorphosis was first published in 1915. It's perhaps one of Kafka's best-known works, probably because every American high school student is required to read it in literature class. Kafka is also well known for his distinctive writing style and themes. He often writes surreal stories about ridiculously punctilious bureaucracies and authoritarian father figures. He did not have a good relationship with his dad. Kafka's style is now so well known that the word Kafkaesque was invented to describe it. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it as having a nightmarishly complex, bizarre, or illogical quality. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this abridged version of The Metamorphosis. Vocabulary: vermin, vermin. The filthy kitchen attracted vermin and mice. Textile, textile. This company produces textiles and leather goods. Dutiful, dutiful. This company tries its best to reward dutiful employees. Anxiety, anxiety. The rapidly approaching final exam caused the student a great deal of anxiety. Inquire, inquire. The auditor came to the office today to inquire about the financial records. Consideration, consideration. Safety is an important consideration when designing a car. Grotesque, grotesque. The young boy imagined that there were grotesque monsters hiding under his bed. Coordinate, coordinate. It will take some time to complete this bridge, because we must coordinate the efforts of the local government and the contractor. The story. One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. He lay on his armor-like back, and if he lifted his head a little, he could see his brown belly, slightly domed and divided by arches into stiff sections. The bedding was hardly able to cover it, and seemed ready to slide off any moment. His many legs, pitifully thin compared with the size of the rest of him, waved about helplessly as he looked. "What's happened to me?" he thought. It wasn't a dream. He was still in his room. His collection of textile samples still lay on the table, and he could still see familiar pictures hanging on the wall. Gregor turned to look out the window and saw the dull gray weather outside. The gentle rain tapping on the window made him feel sad. "How about if I sleep a little bit longer and forget all this nonsense?" he thought. But poor Gregor was unable to sleep as he couldn't get comfortable. "Oh God," he thought. "What a strenuous career it is that I've chosen." Gregor Samsa was a traveling salesman. It was a stressful job for him, but he did it anyway because his elderly parents had debts to pay, and Gregor was a dutiful son. As Gregor sat in his bed, his thoughts turned to his boss. Getting up early all the time, he thought. It makes you stupid. You've got to get enough sleep. Other traveling salesmen live a life of luxury. He started fantasizing about the day he finished paying off his family's debt. I'll go up to my boss and tell him just what I think, he said to himself. He'd probably fall right off his desk in shock. Just then, Gregor remembered the time. God in heaven, he thought. It was 6:30, and the hands were quietly moving forward. He was supposed to leave on the 5 o'clock train. If I hurry, maybe I could get on the 7 o'clock train, Gregor reassured himself. But to do that, he first had to get out of bed, which proved to be more difficult than he assumed. His legs wiggled uselessly in the air as he tried to move his now enormous body. Suddenly, Gregor heard a knock at the door. Gregor, his mother called. It's 6:45. Didn't you want to go somewhere? Gregor tried to answer her, but his voice had changed along with his body. He was shocked to hear a horrible clicking and squeaking as he tried to say, Yes, mother. Yes, thank you. I'm getting up now. Gregor could hear his mother shuffle away, and things were quiet for a few minutes. Then his father knocked on the door. Gregor, what's wrong? Inquired his father. Are you unwell? His mother added. Gregor answered them by saying, I'm fine, but he wasn't sure if they understood him. Gregor, open the door right now, called his father. Gregor did not want to open the door. The first thing he wanted to do was get up in peace and have his breakfast. He tried again to get himself out of bed, this time by rocking himself back and forth. With great effort, he managed to flip himself off the mattress, and he scuttled toward the dresser. He looked at the clock and noticed that it was now 7 o'clock. This caused Gregor a great deal of anxiety, and his mind was flooded with frantic contingency plans. Maybe I can catch the 8 o'clock train. Maybe the office secretary called in sick, so no one will notice I'm late. Maybe... Gregor's thoughts were interrupted by a ring of the doorbell. That'll be someone from work, he said to himself. It was the chief clerk, the boss's second in command. He had come to inquire about Gregor's absence. Gregor lamented to himself. Why do I have to be the only one condemned to work for a company where they immediately become highly suspicious at the slightest shortcoming? The chief clerk knocked on Gregor's door. Good morning, Mr. Samsa, said the clerk. Your mother tells me that you are feeling ill. Is that true? Gregor replied, I'll be there in a moment. But his voice was too muffled for the clerk to understand. I hope it's nothing serious, continued the clerk. But on the other hand, I must say that if we people in commerce ever become slightly unwell, we simply have to overcome it because of business considerations. Can the chief clerk come in to see you now, then? Asked his father impatiently, knocking at the door again. No, said Gregor. There followed a painful silence. The chief clerk now raised his voice. Mr. Samsa, he called to him, what is wrong? You barricade yourself in your room, you only give us mumbled answers, and you are causing serious and unnecessary concern to your parents. The clerk then warned Gregor that if he didn't open the door immediately, he would be fired. This made Gregor scramble toward the door and say, I'll open up immediately, just a moment. I'm slightly unwell, an attack of dizziness, but I'm better now. Just a moment, be patient. Although Gregor now lacked hands, he somehow managed to unlock and open his door. Everyone gasped in shock and horror when they caught sight of Gregor's grotesque body. Gregor saw the clerk cover his mouth with both hands and slowly retreat, as if driven by a steady and invisible force. His mother fainted, and his father looked hostile and clenched his fists as if wanting to knock Gregor back into his room. Now then, said Gregor, I'll get dressed straight away. Now, pack up my samples and set off. Will you please just let me leave now? You can see. he said to the chief clerk, "that I'm not stubborn and I like to do my job." But the chief clerk did not answer because all he could hear were the inhuman squeaking and clicking of an insect. The chief clerk then turned and ran for the door. "No, wait!" shouted Gregor as he ran after him. Gregor was still unused to his new body. It was difficult for him to coordinate his many legs, and his body was much wider than usual. So, in his scramble to catch up with the clerk, he tripped and fell. This gave the clerk the opportunity to make his escape. When Gregor managed to get back onto his feet, he found his father standing in front of him, holding a cane menacingly. "Get back!" yelled Gregor's father as he beat his son on the head. Gregor tried to back up, but only managed to make a big mess as he knocked over tables and chairs. His father kept hitting him in an effort to drive him back into his room. Finally, Gregor squeezed himself back through the door, which his father quickly slammed shut. After that, all was quiet. Questions. Number 1. What was Gregor Samsa's job? A. Exterminator. B. Entomologist. C. Tax attorney. D. Salesman. The answer is D. Salesman. Question 2. How did Gregor Samsa feel about his job? A. He loved his job. B. He thought his job was good enough. C. He hated his job. D. He didn't have a job. The answer is C. He hated his job. Question 3. Why did Gregor chase after the chief clerk? A. He wanted to eat him. B. He wanted to speak to him. C. He wanted to kill him. D. He wanted to turn him into a bug too. The answer is B. He wanted to speak to him. Question 4. What time was Gregor supposed to leave by train? A. 5 a.m. B. 6 a.m. C. 7 a.m. D. 8 a.m. The answer is A. 5 a.m.